Hey, so we want to do something today that we've been doing every year. We want to do a budget discussion, which sounds uber unexciting. But
this is fantastic.
On Thursday, so I'm not sure if this is going to get released. Today's Wednesday. Either today or tomorrow it's going to get released. And we are going to send out a budget for the congregational meeting coming up in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think it's on 13th, Thursday.
Yep.
And if I'm like you, or if you're like me, when I get like the FCA budget or some other boards that I've ever sat on, whenever I get the budget, it's super overwhelming. And it just becomes, I do one of two things. Either I just completely ignore it and go, well, I'm going to trust the guys. Or B, I get frustrated that I don't understand what we're spending all of our money on. And so what we're trying to do, because it's a big budget, it's complex. A lot of people in the church are, within the last 3 or 4 years. And so they're looking at this, having no concept of what in the world we're doing, why we're spending, how much money we're spending. And so that's kind of the goal.
Yeah. So there's a lot of lines on a budget that are just, it is what it is. And by that we mean, bookkeeping, insurance, hydro. We try to be lights off as much as we can. But the building just costs what it costs to run it 7 days a week, and for the different ministries that are going on. So none of those budget lines are really, unless we're going to put solar panels up on the roof and make a huge investment. Like they're not up for debate. They just are what they are. And those aren't really the points that we're really like focusing on, because that's just like, it's like your mortgage payment on your house. You're paying it.
So what we'll do is we'll kind of break it down the way you guys are going to receive it. And then why don't we just break it down in chunks, and then if there's anything in there that we think we need to highlight, we can. But like Patrick said, so the first one is general and administrative. You got your bookkeeping, there's some generic stuff like furniture. Every year you try to replace a few tables, accountant fees, ink, that jazz. And then, yeah. So I don't know if there's any really complicated things in there. Insurance sucks, $8,600. But for insurance, we insure our elders against lawsuits, because that's the world we live in. We have insurance for plan to protect. We have insurance for the building. We have insurance for all of our trips. And so that when, the youth or whatever go on places, we have insurance that covers that. So that's what that is. All right. Online services. This is a whole different world. You want me to break these down? Or you want to break them down? We didn't.
Online services. So we're dealing with like everything that we have to do from a subscription standpoint, or services that we buy online to help facilitate the operations of the church. So from website to personalized staff email, planning center fees. Planning center is the check-in system that you guys are involved, but it's more than that. It allows us to have a one-stop administrative kind of central location that we put all the information in, allows us to draw from that. So there's a lot of good stuff there. Church tech, right now media, a lot of things that are helps us to be able to provide access to people who want to connect to either ministries of the church, online, bulletin signups, and also right now media, you're looking at discipleship material that crosses ages from 6 months to a year to 99. There's tons of material in there, which is fantastic, but that's all subscription-based online services. So that's what that whole line.
Church.tech is actually interesting. So it's an AI-powered service. And so that may freak some people out. It certainly has freaked us out. So one of the things that they've done with this one specifically, this is geared specifically towards churches. So as we try to promote different social media stuff and as we try to upload sermons, so what it'll do, so after our sermon on Sunday, you upload the video to that, or we upload the manuscript, whatever, and it'll spit out, especially if you do the video, it spits out the exact manuscript. And then from there, it can give you a bunch of different ideas. Okay, so based on this sermon, here's some small group questions we'd recommend, or here's some daily devotionals or whatever, based on exactly what we were learning. The other thing it does is the clips that we'll post. And I know we haven't done as many as we'd like this year. That's part of our goal, is to create a social media team over the next couple of months. But the ability to be able to put the videos in, and it just gives us 20 different clips where it has the videos and everything, or the words over it and stuff that we can post. So it saves piles and piles and piles of time. And the only one in our office who would have the expertise to pull this off would be Trevor. And so you start doing some math and going, okay, well, we can either pay an online fee for Christians who have developed this software to help churches, or we hire another tech guy for, however much money that is. So that's what that is.
It's a very small investment for the return that you get, and it provides you with the tools that are needed.
All right. So general discipleship ministries. This one will be a bit longer. Start with children's ministry, so their budget. And so when you get this, I'm not going to go through every detail on this. When you guys get it, there's going to be a specific tab where Yessie will break down everything in terms of her position. When we talk about kids ministry, it's grades 5 and down. So that position covers everything that happens on Sunday mornings, everything required for the classrooms. Includes, stuff like the printers and the check-ins and all that jazz. But then she's also, as part of her position, she's in charge of all the, Mother's Day, Father's Day, the Christmas program, the Spring Festival, a bunch of that stuff. So there's a bunch of extra things that she's in charge of. So when you're looking at that, it is children's ministry, but it's also events that typically the children's ministry pastor has done. And then it also includes the kids' night out, which will be launching, and that will become a monthly thing. But that's kind of that. But yeah, you can look at that. I mean, it's everything from snacks to crafts to the chairs and everything you need in Sunday school. From a Sunday school number, like we're averaging close to between 80, 90, sometimes up to 100 kids in our Sunday school and Sunday mornings. And so
you're looking at 21 line items that are on her explanation. So 21 line items to total 18.95. And so you're getting an idea that there's quite a few things that she is budgeting for. Some of the more substantial ones that I'll mention are the Sunday school curriculum, craft supplies, replacement toys. You're going to say, we can save money there. We've tried saving money there, and everybody brings in toys, and there's a very small percentage of that actually works. But we are willing to try again. So if you're excited about, hey, I can save the church money there, I'll donate my whole supply. It's possible, but I've been here for 8 years, and that's never worked. Right. So just throwing that out there. Yep. Christmas events is a big line item. Of course, it's one of the major times of year at the church. Snacks is a huge line item. Junior youth, kids night out, kids ministry conference, all sort of factored into some of the equation here.
So junior youth in there, that you have an older version still. That's crossed out of there, but theory. I know what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. And we also have, she's purchasing some kids' tables and chairs, which are a little bit different than the general furniture fund.
Yep.
Because they're more specific to the sizing of what you're dealing with in those classes. And we are maxed out. We're beyond maxed out on our need for tables and chairs. So those are all some of the line items. Very explainable. You'll look at it and you'll go, yep, makes sense. Don't see anything in there that we can slash that would do any significant altering of the budget.
So then when you move up to junior youth and young adults, their budgets are really small. And I think sometimes in the past, at least, people have been concerned, why are we not investing more in that? Well, because most of the investment we're doing there is in staff. And so when you think of junior youth, the largest investment we have is that we have a paid staff member who oversees all of this. And so Patrick oversees junior youth. And so then we don't need a curriculum. We don't need a bunch of, you're dealing with grades 6 to 8. You're not dealing with piles of crafts. You guys buy some snacks sometimes, but often the kids bring the snacks. There are some events. It just doesn't cost that much. Like Sunday school is a whole other ball game of you're trying to both teach the kids, but kind of entertain the kids and keep them going while the parents are in the sanctuary. The biggest cost with the older ministries, including all adult ministries, is the cost to have the person who actually oversees it. Right. And so that's why those budgets are lower. It isn't a high cost ministry. It's just a matter of, so for youth, like Trevor has to train the leaders and he needs to organize everything and we need to make sure it all runs. But beyond that, there's not a massive cost. And so that's kind of why those numbers are low if there's confusion there, because there would be for me if I was looking at it. Women's and men's ministry, adult Sunday school, those are more just a little bit generic numbers. For the most part, those guys pay for their own stuff. So we run men's things, like we did the golfing thing. Awesome. Great event. Great, did we learn spiritual lessons? Yes. You could crash on a golf course. And if you crash on a golf course, you might meet Jesus. And so there was a whole come to Jesus moment.
Yeah, a lot of that would be for some odds and ends that don't necessarily get covered, or For instance, your registrations, you end up with a few additional registrations and people don't show up. And for whatever reason, they weren't able to pay. It kind of gives you buffers for that. Or it also allows you a little flexibility in terms of being able to do some advanced purchases and gives you some flex. But generally speaking, those ministries don't exceed their budgetary requests. Oftentimes they don't make it to their budgetary requests, but those need to be in there to provide those flexibilities for them to be able to operate the ministry. So
and also in the past couple of years, like especially coming out of COVID, like these are rebuilding ministries. And so even as we think of that, you want to budget for something, okay, well, we don't know exactly what the team's going to use it for, but we want to encourage you to grow this ministry. And so whether that's even the guys going to get training, because there's some really good men's ministry conference training type events, same with women. So it's a bit of a thing of saying, hey, this matters to us. But then from an elders and from a staff standpoint, like we don't want to micromanage every ministry. Right. And so
we try to platform things in such a way that it's an in-out expense.
Right.
So it'd be very similar to how the youth would run their missions. Where there's fundraising or you're paying to go. That's typically how it works, but there's always some expenditures that don't get met in those figures. So
right, and we do want to reach people who are poor. That's part of the church's mandate, and so you want to put little buffers, like you said, in here, so that if somebody can't afford something they really want to be at, the challenge, and I think this is a little bit off budget, but it does make budget. The challenge for church was for years, the culture was everything at church should be free. And so if anything the church runs has to be free. Meanwhile, you pay for everything everywhere outside. And so then the way the budgeting had to be done was you had to factor everything in. So we run this men's Bible study in the mornings. Okay, well, the church has to pay for all the books and it doesn't really make sense. Like it's not really logical. And so we've really taken the approach of, no, like if the men's Bible study that we do Saturday mornings, if that's valuable to you, invest the $30 or whatever it was for the book. Make that investment. But we want to leave that buffer because for some people, money is an issue. Mm-hmm. And we go through seasons where I don't have money for this and I don't want that to be the reason you can't attend. Right. And so that's kind of the tension you go when you live in a richer part of the world where I don't want people just taking advantage of the church just because, well, it's free. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're not holding people back from discipleship opportunities simply because they financially cannot afford to be there.
Right. And there's a lot to be said about somebody having to take out a 20 or a 50 and put it down as part of their process where there is a personal responsibility that is being associated to the expenditure. And when you do events for free, and if your signups aren't, in line, you can end up with half the people not showing up, but they said they were going to come.
Right.
Well, there was no investment that they had to make that they're going to be like, well, I better go because I bought those tickets. So that's part of the, where we're living in our current timeline, in our current economic situation and our culture.
So music and creative ministry. I keep wanting to say creativity, no matter how often it still said creative here. Creative ministry. And so that in children's ministry, there'll be a tab breaking it all down. When you think of this one of the things that has separated our church from almost any church our size is our ability for our musicians to really play at a level that is not normal for a church our size. So if you haven't traveled much, then people don't appreciate what it is Sunday morning, especially for people who don't, like if this is your first church experience or if this is kind of the only place you go, you're kind of like, well, this is normal. This is not normal. What we have is not normal. You have to understand how abnormal the talent level of what we have Sunday morning is. Not to say other churches can't worship. Church is all worship. What we're talking about is what do we do in terms of excellence when people walk in the room and we can worship God through one single person leading. We can worship God, just do a piano. What we as a church have said, no, the type of Sunday morning experience we want to offer is we want to offer something that really sounds or just displays excellence. We want it to be awesome. And so part of that then is you have a lot of tools that come out. And so this budget goes up and down every year. What we're working towards right now, when you think long-term vision, is at some point we would like to do a church plant. That's something that both of us really have felt God laying on our hearts. And this is a couple years ago already, and we're still kind of waiting for how God's going to open that door. Right now, the research, and we'll talk more about this later when we get to consulting thing that we want to do. But right now, the research that is going out there is saying the best, most effective way to plant a church is still to use screens to launch. So what that means is, so let's say we were going to go to Port Bruce or Stanley or Burwell or wherever we end up, and you launch a church. Typically, the way in our context that would work is that you would hire somebody to go down, and they would, or their family, you would go and you try to just plant this thing. But that's asking a lot of one human being. So that person has to basically be a singer, a preacher, a pastor, a shepherd, an evangelist, everything. And so they're saying, because people are glued to the screens anyway, this is not like we're trying to do something that they're not doing.
Right.
Taking that burden off and saying, okay, we're going to live stream this service there, so that the people that are planting the church can focus literally on relationship building and that kind of stuff. So doing all the people thing, and then as they get bigger, then you can change, they can go to your own whatever. But in order for that to be done, so if you listen to our music online, it's a whole other ballgame. It's one thing to make it sound really good in here. It's another thing to make it sound good online. And that's not just a skill set. Like, well, we need somebody who knows. No, you need the equipment. The musicians need to be able to hear themselves. And so a lot of this kind of stuff is a little bit over our head. One of the things that we are very lucky as a church, and I don't think people realize how rare it is to have somebody like a Trevor on staff. And so I know we chirp him often because he's the youngest and it's fun, right? And so it is fun, and he's a baby of the family. And so there's a lot there that we can have fun with. But to have that skill set, most churches don't. Like, most people don't go, hey, I want to get my audio and sound training and that level, and then I'm going to work at a church. It just doesn't happen.
Not scalable to the proportion of our size and location.
Close. But even a lot of the larger churches struggle because it's not a high career that a lot of people in high school are like, I want to be a sound guy, man.
Yeah, I'm going to strive for.
Right.
So there's definitely a lot. So when you look at the budget in that area, these are like, this has been really well done in terms of Trevor's approach and for the direction that we're heading.
Right.
I oftentimes think of, working in construction, and, your crew is going to jump out of the van and they're going to, take the stage on that floor that they want to build. What tools do they have access to help that process be the most efficient, for the building to, everything to run as smoothly as possible, for them to be able to perform at the level they want. And I mean, you look at moving from, corded tools to cordless tools. You look at moving from swinging a hammer to pneumatic, nail drivers, and you advance along in ways that improve not only the product, but also the experience of the individuals that are working to create or to perform or to give you that product. And having a musician who's spending a lot of time at home, working on their craft and practicing and going through the different songs that are being selected and putting in that time and effort, and they show up and there's little consideration being made to how the overall sound and what their team is able to do when they're trying to create this song worship kind of environment to bring people to the foot of the cross. That says a lot to them. But if you provide avenues where they're going like, wow, the church sees the benefit of the gifting that God has given to me and how I've been created in His image, and this is part of the aspect of what our overall worship is, for us to be able to provide them with the tools that are necessary for them to really become everything that God has for them. That's a beautiful thing. And being able to do that at this is so low cost. It's almost not even funny in that sense.
Don't even look at the cost. Like, I get that part, but I think people need to see the vision for where we're heading. If the goal was just to stay in our sanctuary, we were not looking to multiply, we're not looking to expand, we're not looking to do any of that, then some of this you can go, well, I don't know. Like, are we just building an idol? Because there are churches when you go, and I mean, that's the whole thing. It feels like a concert, the whole thing. And so then I think people have a bit of a defensiveness that comes up and goes, well, why are we doing this? Again, that's where you have to zoom out and go, okay, well, the goal is that we can live stream to another location and it be so good that people in another location have the capacity to worship alongside us, right? And that's kind of the thing. And again, it's not a better or worse. You have to go, what is the vision of this unique church?
Right.
Just because we're investing this does not mean Summerfeld needs to, does not mean Summers Corners needs to. It's not an every church thing. Where we feel our niche is really being able to reach people who either have left faith, have been hurt by the church, or people who are brand new to church. And so what we're trying to create is something that is a little bit different. And I think there's value in, you want in a community, Bradley Street, their choir, phenomenal, excellent, incredible. That's not us. We just don't have that. But you want that in a community where different people have the different things. And so that's my big thing that I think people get lost in this when they look and they just go, well, why are you doing this? Well, again, zoom out. In 5 years, we want to have a healthy church plant out there.
Because as part of the vision that we've discussed that we believe God gave to us was the expansion and continuation of the ministries at Family Central. We've discussed the building of an athletic center where we have intentional connections being made between people of faith and people that are exactly as you described, either post-faith or left faith or hurt by faith or actively involved in faith, and also a church plant where we are purposely not thinking about, hey, can we create this huge mega center, but rather there are communities that have a need for light to be shined in those places, and not just for people to come out of those places, but for light to go into those places. So how do we effectively do that? And this is part of moving towards fulfilling that vision.
Right. And so the other thing I'll add with that quickly and we'll move on is one of the things we want to do at the congregational meeting, if y'all show up, we want to go over all the drawings. Like, what is the athletic center? Like, because I think there's definitely some awareness, but kind of giving the updates of where are we? How does that fit into church again? Same with Family Central, same with some of the other stuff. And really, I'm really hoping that through this budgeting process, people can wrap their heads a little bit more around, okay, well, where are we all heading as a church? Right? That doesn't mean everybody has to be engaged in every part of it, but just kind of going, okay, as a big picture, even when we look at staffing, well, why do we have so many staff? Again, if our mission is only this church, if all we're trying to do is offer a Sunday morning service, we don't need this many staff. If we're actually trying to inspire and change our community, if we're trying to really influence and invest and grow, we need more staff. And so if you don't see that piece, then when you tithe and you see people get, spending wherever, you're like, wow, this doesn't make any sense. Other churches can do this with 2 staff. Yeah, but other churches don't run multiple charities. Other churches are not invested that deeply in the community. And again, it's a unique call. Like, I don't want to, at any point of this, go, we're better than other churches. All we want to do is run our race. We feel like this is our race. We're running it as well as we can. That's how this budget. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. I mean, Patrick and I are open anytime. So let's try you guys can come ask us questions about this in more detail but just so you know, all right. So that is that. After that, it's pretty generic. Some training stuff. We do a yearly elders retreat that looks, and then a bit of budget for church camp, just to kind of make sure that everything is covered. Volunteer appreciation. So over the last couple of years, it's always been like different ministries do it different ways. So Trevor would do gift cards, and yes, he would. But then there's other ministries that we always felt like, well, they don't get gift cards. They don't get anything. And it's very hard to go every ministry. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go back to what we did a couple of years ago, and that is doing once a year, do a big event, invite all the volunteers, and really celebrate what God is doing here. Celebrate together, celebrate as a church family. And so we took all the budgets that were split up between everything, and it was $5,000. And so that may be more than we need to spend. I'm not sure. We have to figure this out a little bit. But we felt like having a good meal together, sharing testimonies of what God has done in this, in the church in the last year, and being able to really do that together was more valuable than handing out endless Tim Hortons gift cards.
I find it very interesting because this is almost a callback to, as you read in the Old Testament, some of the celebrations and ceremonies and festivals that the people were specifically supposed to set aside resources to be able to attend. And some of it was like memorial, some of it was celebratory over like who the person of God was and the moment in when this event happened and what God had done, and calling people back to remember how they got to a place where they had they lived in this land that flowed with milk and honey, and it was a beautiful place, and it was their place. And I think it's a beautiful thing, and I think it's kind of neat that instead of it being individualistic, it's a return to a community celebration, and I think it's pretty cool.
The EMC conference. So we for years haven't gone to Manitoba. So again, the way Mo explained on Sunday, we're part of a conference. And so they have 2 meetings that are in person a year. Both you can do Zoom, but we haven't been really engaged in the conference over the last couple of years, for being completely honest. Part of that is because we didn't know what we were bringing to the conference because we were desperately trying to figure our own stuff out here. There's lots there. I think that's an unnecessary tangent for today. We don't have long enough, but we really, really love the direction the conference is heading. We have really, really enjoyed the staff. This has been the last couple of years that we've really started to engage more with the staff. I mean, we had Mo here 2 years ago for church camp. Like we've done well. And so anyways, Patrick and I will plan, and we may end up taking some of the other staff as we go a little bit further along, but at least for the November meetings, which are the big yearly ministerial meetings, we're going to head out there. And so it's 2 flights. $1,500 is a bit much right now. The flights were pretty cheap. Our flights this year, me and you heading there and back, were $550 or something like that together. So that's not bad.
$550 total?
Yeah.
Man, that used to be one ticket.
Yeah, but it's also different now because you can't even bring a carry-on on.
Yeah.
Like it's wild.
So I'm going to be layered up pretty good.
Yeah, we're going to wear all of our clothes. And I think one of us, because I'm taking Beckett with, so it'll be me, you, and Beckett. Should be a good time. One of us will take, you check in a suitcase or something. But it's a little bit wild, some of the pricing. Okay. The Unstuck group. So if you're looking at that, the way it's put in this budget, when we send this out, we should put more than Unstuck group because people can be like, what the heck?
It says see separate worksheet. So there is an explanation that's supposed to be provided.
Yes, if people go. Do you click on the links when you get these?
Yes, people should.
I know people should.
People should.
Said, do you?
Yep.
Anyways. Okay, so the Unstuck group. So over the last probably 2 years, the conversations about what to do as next steps for the church have really intensified.
Yeah.
And by intensified, I do not mean division. So be clear on that. We're very lucky. Like the biggest division we would have right now in terms of our future is if we can only build one thing. Do we start with a bigger sanctuary or do we start with lots more children's ministry facilities? Like that's our biggest struggle in terms of like when you think 5-10 years down the road. So board, great place with staff, very united in the sense that we want to be faithful to what God is doing. We want to make a wise decision. The problem for us was I've never led a church expanding from 400 to 600 or whatever we end up being. Right? I've led a church now that has crossed the 200 barrier. So if you follow any church stuff, which I don't know why you would, but if you do and you're interested, 200, 500, and 1,000 are the massive barriers where most people or most churches fail. So when a church plant starts and they begin to go, a single pastor, for the most part with some volunteers, can build a church to 200. The reason most churches stop at 200 is in a large way systemic, right? The pastor can't hand off any of the work. He wants to do everything himself, or the board is just like, we're not hiring anybody else. Forget it.
Yeah, you'd have to have like a very high functioning, delegating, and leadership building pastor to get to 200.
Right.
Individual. Like that's your.
And so the way we did it, some of it was unintentional, some of it was guessing. We hired a children's ministry pastor back in the day, and then we hired a youth pastor. And so we kind of took the approach, we need the staffing. In our conference, there are very few churches that are like significantly larger than us. And so when we looked at next steps, we're not really sure where to go. We don't have people in our conference who have the expertise. In our region, like Faith is.
And some of the conversation
maybe
about like church growth, and you have to understand, like we're dealing with our specific context in Mount Salem.
Right.
This isn't about other churches or anything else. It's just what God has called us to, and the vision and direction and, the reach that we're hoping to have. We're not really focused on sideways growth of drawing from other people. Other churches. We're interested in reaching those, again, that have left faith, disillusioned, hurt, that haven't experienced Jesus. They're coming from maybe a post-Christian like context, and now this is a new experience to them. We're looking for like that's the kind of growth that we have been experiencing, and that it changes the context. Because if your community, if the churches that you're looking to give you guidance are experiencing sideways growth or cultural growth, or then the context is different, and it's not the same. It's not the same structures or systems or expectations or those sorts of. So it does change the conversation when you're trying to look out and say, okay, who do we connect with to help with some of what we're doing, to give us the guidance, the understanding, the information, maybe some system structural guidance. Like who are we connecting with for that, for our context? And this specific group has worked with thousands of churches. Well, is it 1,000? Yeah, it was like 900,000. Yeah, it's worked with like 1,000 churches, and so they have.
Okay, so the way we came across these guys, so we've been listening to Kerry Newhoff and his leadership podcast for a number of years.
Canadian pastor, one of the largest leadership podcasts in the world.
Yeah, and so he had Amy Anderson on there, and so just whatever. Listen, as she shared, but kind of what they did. We did a bit more of a deep dive. And then we started subscribing to her podcast, which was the Unstuck group. Realized that a lot of what they do is stuff we've already worked with, some of the basic material. And so then started going, oh man, so I got the elders starting to listen to some of their podcasts. Then we reached out and said, okay, what does it actually look like to bring the Unstuck group out and help our church? And so they have a Canadian pastor that is out of Toronto that heads up their Canadian side. And so what that $20,000 investment is in January, February, March, they are going to do a pile of assessments in the church. So those assessments range from just the basic health. So one of the things we already know, and you will see over the next couple of weeks, we're trying to get ahead of a bunch of this to try to figure out what are the things that we think they're going to say.
Like when you're going to hire a cleaner.
Yeah, and you want
before the cleaner is, you clean.
Well, some of it is because you want the cleaner to do the stuff that you don't want to do. You don't want them just to do the basic stuff, right? So it's the same thing here. So we already know some of our signage is poor, so we've got a bunch of signage coming. Charlotte Wall and Christina Claus and a few other people are working on a welcome center, on some next step cards, a bunch of that kind of stuff. But what they're going to do is look through all of our programs and go, where are you strong? Where are you weak? And then also look through our staffing, look through all of our job descriptions, look through all of that, go, are we investing, as per what the norm is in all the churches that they work with? And most of the churches they work with are rural churches. A lot of their business in the U.S. And so there is that factor, but rural churches, that doesn't change much. And so over those 3 months, they work with all the staff, work with the elders, and try to put together a bit of a long-term plan, and then go, okay, well, if you want to hit this target, here's the metrics you need. Here's this is how you scale up. And so we're really, really excited about it. I think it's one of the elders said it. I think it's far cheaper to invest now while we're healthy than to wait until a split or something happens because we're just guessing. That $20,000 will be far more expensive. And so when we think about, we want to do this well, we want to be faithful, we want this to be the best outcome for everybody. I don't want, as we grow, for people to be like, well, this is just Albert. No, it is not just Albert. This is the vision that we believe God has given us as a team. So whatever that looks like, and then, just like any other business, if you want to grow a business, if you're a good plumber, that doesn't make you a good business person. I'm a good preacher. That doesn't make me a good strategic business person who can scale up a business. And so that's one of those things that we're really excited about these guys coming in. If you're curious and you're like, hey, who are these people? Look them up. The Unstuck Group. They release I think it's a weekly podcast. I've been listening to every one of them. Love it. I find it incredibly, like anything else, not everything they say I agree with. But
not everything fits the context of who we are. And right.
It's like having, so when we talk about Trevor being so unique in his gifting, it's like that. It's just one of those giftings that nobody really has that in one church. It doesn't exist because there's no way of doing it unless you reach, hundreds of churches. Well, that's what these guys do for a living now. So anyways.
I just think it's a unique situation that requires expertise that, this is, maybe exists within the body, but we're not sure where within our community or how to draw it out, or the structures that are needed for it to function in a healthy way. Again, sometimes people are going to hear our conversation, and I think they'll derive from what we're saying. And it's like, oh, they want to hit 1,000. They want to hit 500. They just want a big church. What we want is to be everything God has purposed us individually you individually and Mount Salem collectively to be. So whatever God has called us to and whatever that is, we want to make sure that we are being responsible stewards of what God is leading us into. And it's not necessarily simple when you think of the vision that God gave us. Okay, I want you to start a downtown charitable organization that's going to be the hands and feet of Jesus in a rural setting. Those rarely exist anywhere on the level that Family Central exists. Like, that doesn't happen. Okay, I want you guys to create. I want you guys to head up the design, construction, and facilitation of an athletic center, a community center where people can come together, on the church property and, do life together.
Right.
Like, okay, how do you do that?
Right.
And then we want you to, vision out what it would look like to shine light into communities that don't have a gospel presence, or or specific communities that God says, I need your presence in that community because that's what the community needs. Well, okay, how do we do that from our church kind of setting with who we are?
Right.
So there's layers that are a little bit more complicated than just I'm going to church on a Sunday morning.
Yep.
And I think that kind of understanding of we want to steward the responsibility well, and we need some help with it.
Yep.
And we're not afraid to say that we could use some help. And that's part of what this investment is for.
100%. So, again, if you have questions, reach out. We did kind of do a detailed report that will be attached to that. Deacon Fund, basically, if you're not familiar with that, so we basically set a bit of money aside where people can apply. Our philosophy is that the Bible is clear that family is supposed to be taking care of family. Neighbors are supposed to be taking care of neighbors. We do not buy into the philosophy that every person who ever struggles, the first place they go to is the church. No. That's not the way Scripture set it up. That's not the way we were intended to live. And so it is not a huge number. It is a number that suggests that if there is an urgent need where family cannot support, which happens, we want to have something set aside. And when it's something bigger than this, and we've done this in the past, when it's something bigger than this, then we'll be on the front line of, promoting a GoFundMe or whatever that may be.
Community and,
But we view it as our job is, again, to equip and encourage people to do the good works that God has created them to do.
Right.
If your brother is suffering, it is on you and your responsibility to be the primary caregiver, not the church's. The church is the last resort, but it is to be a resort.
Right.
And so that's kind of the thought process with that. Mennonite Community Services, Anna Bergen is in our church. Actually, we met with her yesterday. And one of the things we said is we need to get her on stage more to share with the ministry that they do in Elmer, that they do in this broader community.
It was a couple-hour conversation. It was
so rich.
Yeah,
so
very rich. It was awesome. Looking forward to being able to hear from her more. EMC conference, obviously part of being the conference of churches that are the collective that makes up the EMC. This is just our share in the ministries, the administrative, the oversight. This is a small investment compared to what the return of investment has been over the years.
100%.
To help in this church. If you know the history of this church, EMC conference has played a huge role in not only with funding to help get it going, but in some of the harder moments of the church to come alongside the church and to do their best to assist the vitality and just seeing the church continue to thrive. So small investment there.
And we put $2,000 towards Bill and Esther. For those of you that don't know, that's something that will be for another podcast, but we sent, it was Benny and Esther. We sent them to Bolivia, 6-7 years ago, and committed to continue to support them. They do have a home team, which is responsible for the primary of their fundraising. And so we give a small thing as a church, and then their home team is supposed to do the rest of fundraising. When Benny died and all this kind of went sideways, that whole thing has been a little more of a challenge. And so we want to get that regoing, but they are working in Bolivia. They are representing our church as well as the conference. And then Bill now, who Esther married after Benny passed, he comes from La Crete. And so they have another home church there, but yeah, that's what that is. And then day camps is just a line. Our camps pay for themselves, other than obviously multiple staff members help out with it from the church. And so there is always that piece of it. But all right, payroll expenses. So the way, let's start with this. I'll explain what we have in terms of staffing. And then we can kind of break the numbers down a little bit in the sense of just explaining what they are. We don't, and people can argue with us on this, but we don't feel like we need to post our individual salaries for everybody. That's something between us and the board. The board does not even necessarily share specifically with everybody what everybody else in the office makes. We follow an EMC guideline. They have a salary worksheet. Here's how that works. It's based on experience and ministry and all, a bunch of different layers. So
if you have questions, you can approach the board and they'll be specific.
Sure they will. Okay. So we have me and you are full-time. Mm-hmm. So our roles will be getting changed a little bit over the next couple months as we try to clarify. Again, and some of this is just as the church grows, things change a little bit and we're getting older. And so things change too. But we're both full-time. So my primary responsibility would be ensuring that teaching, that's the biggest thing. And then there's the other stuff in terms of funerals and weddings and counseling and so a bunch of that kind of stuff. You're full-time. You kind of take care of the deacon stuff. You also do junior youth. And then there's a pile of stuff that there's kind of together, whether it comes to building projects, working with the elders, working with other ministry leads. But we'll send those out once the Unstuck group finishes with us.
We have high hopes for.
We're excited. I'm really excited. We're in a good place. I think most of the time you do these kind of things, it's because things have fallen apart. Mm-hmm. Whereas for us, it's like, no, I would like to get better. I would like to, and then Trevor is also full-time. And so his primary would be overseeing senior youth, overseeing the everything that's related to the worship, the music portion on Sunday. Mm-hmm. So that's tech, that's all the musicians, all that jazz. And then he also does most of our tech behind the scenes, whether it comes to the podcasts. He's responsible for the website. There are some things we need to clarify moving forward, but those are kind of the primaries.
So when you see a video like this being put out, Trevor is at the helm of the recording and how it looks and how it sounds. And he will not only be present in the lead up to the recording, but he's also with us in studio right now. And he will also probably carry forward at least the same amount of time as what the video is after, if not maybe twice as long, to facilitate the video to be what he would consider up to a standard that he feels comfortable releasing. So there's a quality assurance part there that gets put in. People often don't see that, but that is an aspect of what he does. And also when he releases videos out as well, he's doing that when they get recut after a live stream and they get posted to somewhere. He does that as well. And there's different other kind of technical components to that are behind the scenes that you don't necessarily see. A lot of that he's done through investigating how to do it, figuring it out, purchasing the product, putting it on a line, on a budget, getting in the budget. For us to be in here right now, what we're doing has all come through the expertise that Trevor has brought to the table to get us to this point. So all that you see. So when you're wondering what he does, a lot.
So then kids ministry, this one is adjusting. And so in the new year, some of this will look a little bit different. Part of the problem is that we are very pro-life in this church. And so we are very much into procreation. And so our children's ministry people are also very busy creating their own work. And so it has made this position a little more complicated.
Which I think there's some by design of that, and that's not to be a joke.
You want people who love kids.
Yeah.
100%.
But there is, I think, as we move forward, I sense and feel that God is moving things and again, I think we'll see in the next few months how this kind of unfolds and what it'll look in its entirety. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
So the way it was this year, it was 30 hours for the children's ministry director, and so it would be Yessie right now. So she takes care of everything that you saw in her lines, and then 10 hours was put as an extra 10 so that they would also do camps. That did not work as well as we had hoped. There were some complications. There were some challenges with the way that was set out. So we're re-envisioning that. The other thing that we're trying to figure out is a better way of also connecting with moms. We know that postpartum is a big issue. We know a lot of moms feel overwhelmed. We also know a lot of dads do. But as this position goes forward, one of the things we're hoping to do as we figure out exactly what's what, is being able to make sure that a large part of what this position is also reaching out to families, right? Not just supplying a ministry, but also reaching out. And so, okay. And then Judy is our administrator, and she is, I can't remember if it's 10 or 15 hours a week. But she comes in for a day and a bit and does all of our minutes and does the elder minutes and does a lot of the announcements and bulletins and all that jazz. Staff benefits. A couple years ago, the church decided that offering staff benefits was a good thing. And so it's a little, we are investigating some more into how we do this better. But right now, that's the next line, what that costs for our 5 staff members to have the benefits that we do. We are through a company called Victor right now, which uses Green Shield. So I don't really understand how all that works, but definitely something that for us is very beneficial, especially having a large family. We've really, really appreciated this. I know people are divided on benefits and stuff like that, but for our family itself, we've really been thankful for that part of this. Bookkeeper. So Abe Clausen does make sure all of our bills are paid, and with an organization our size, that's a lot. And so he gets a couple hours a week that he is paid for to come in and make sure that the lights are not just turned on Sunday, but are literally still on. Because if it was me and you in charge. Let's move to the next line. Secretary has her own line. Never mind, my bad. So she's not included in the upper ones. And then just the CPPI, expense reimbursements, which apparently my wife's going to be mad when she sees that. That we sometimes don't always get reimbursed for the things that we do. And we're good with that. Mileage.
So moving on to facility expenses.
I don't really know what to say. I like that number. I don't. The church treats us really, really well, and I have a hard time with like some of the driving that we do. I go for a meeting at Johnny's. Yeah, I could charge mileage, but it doesn't really like. Even some of the other stuff, I get a meal too. Like I don't need to. So I think there's a give and take when you look at this that I hope people see is that I can't speak for Trevor or Yessie because they're not looking at me here. It's just me and you, but. We tried to have a give and take that, yeah, we get paid by the church and I feel like we get paid fairly, but we also sacrifice for the church. That it isn't just us taking and saying, hey, you guys give. We're still responsible to tithe. We're still responsible to sacrifice. Our worship leaders all show up here on their own gas, right? Nobody gets paid when they go to the stuff. And so we tried to live that out. And so when those numbers are low, that's part of at least what I have taken, and I know Patrick is with me on that, is kind of our own approach to, that's part of our gift back to the church of saying, hey, we're in this too. Anyways, and then there's the repairs, maintenance, custodian, cleaning supplies, there's nothing interesting there. So that brings us to a budget this year of about $486. I think these numbers are going to change a little bit. I'm not convinced I have the full, but somewhere around the 480 mark. Which sounds like an incredible much. But again, you got to zoom out and then you kind of got to go, okay, well, of the people and the amount of people that we have here, this is not a huge budget.
No.
And so our goal with doing this, at the end of the day, structurally, legally, the elders could do this without the congregation. They could say, here's your budget.
Right.
What we have taken as an approach is we just don't think that's wise because we can tell you what you have to give, but if you don't give it. So we want to be on the same page. So the reason we do this is to be very transparent, to go, this is where we think the money should go. In our motion that we'll make at this meeting, there's always room for, we have no idea what next year's going to bring.
Right. So we include in the motion the ability for the elders to plus or minus on the budget line as necessary to fulfill the vision of the church. So if there's things that get altered in a downward trajectory because they believe it's important that we move in that is part of the motion. If they believe that there's something that needs to be added into the budget because the finances are there and they believe that's an important addition, the flexibility is there. But we're really focused on transparency and doing our best to provide people with answers and hopefully connecting the dots between purposeful expenditures that are in line with fulfilling the calling, the purpose, the vision of the church, and what God has for us here, and the collective community of believers that God has brought, that He has added to the body as it's pleased Him, and in the end is what we want, is that those two things are working in harmony to bring about people seeing Jesus in our community.
Yeah. All right. So the last thing I want to talk about a little bit real quick. This is an above and beyond the church budget.
Yeah, this is like church budget done. This is something.
So Dave Klassen came to us a little while ago, so Dave and Iona, and said something that we already all knew, and that was that the playground on the church sucks, is dangerous, and really should be replaced. Right, and so that was the way he said it, and
that was kind, because when I started here, I was like, "What?"
I know, that was like 8 years ago. So
that was fantastic, though.
So we said, hey, well, not we said, this is actually cool. He called and said, can I research?
Yeah.
So he did all the research. He put some together. We met with the guy a couple of weeks ago. And so they've put together a plan. It's hard to explain right here everything. So I think what I'm going to say is we're going to post it on our bulletin board. You're going to see some pictures. We'll post where it goes as part of the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And then also the amount of funds that we need. We are going to try to get some grants because this is a community thing. Mm-hmm. Putting in a new playground is something that benefits the community like crazy, especially because in Mount Salem, there's nothing. And so if you don't live in Mount Salem, you don't know this, but if you live in Mount Salem, you know that there's a lot of people that come by and use the basketball court and use that kind of stuff because there's nothing else. So we will do that. The cost, which may sound like a lot to you, was less than I expected.
Less than I expected.
And so we are looking at about $100,000 investment, which is a pretty sizable playground. We asked right away for the rubber on the bottom.
Yeah.
So that's another $100,000. So we said, well, maybe like what else is there? And so as part of this, they have, and I don't know exactly what this is. It's not wood chips, but it's a manufactured wood type of material that is considered to be not only fully accessible, but also like very safe in terms of landing on, like falling off. Because you'll see some of this, like it's a pretty awesome structure. It's got some climbing things. So there's definitely going to be some kids that fall, no doubt about it. And so this material is designed for that. And then we'll have to do some of the excavation and stuff ourselves. But we've already talked to some people who are like, no, we'll do that. So that's that. But that's going to be one of these projects that the risk for us, the church always is, we don't want to do something like this and go, now we have to cut back on all the ministries because we want to do something like this. So this is kind of don't take your tithe money. Don't take what you were going to give back to God. This is a above and beyond. We want to see if we can get the sucker built. We're going to try to, like I said, do some grants. I have no idea if that'll be successful. But anyways, so that's that. We'll put that up there. I'm excited about that. We have tons of kids. I think it'll be a really neat investment.
We're looking forward to playing on it, to be honest. But
yeah, we did ensure that adults were on. Other than that, I hope this was useful. I know it can be a little bit of a drag, and I think at the same time, I feel like it's a bit of especially if you're new, you're probably still drinking from a fire hose with this. There's a lot of different things that we as a church are involved in. We know that it's hard for us to keep everybody up to date just because I don't know what people don't understand and what they do understand. And so if you have questions, please reach out.
Yes, we would love to sit down and have a conversation. We really would.
And then the last thing I would say especially with the budget, just please understand this is not an Albert and Patrick thing. We get to be involved in the process. And so the elders will say, hey, staff, research this, get this done, put together, the preliminary budget, whatever. But it is their thing. And so especially if you have concerns, you can come to us for questions. Don't get me wrong, but I don't get a vote on the budget any more than anybody else does. Actually, I don't think I even get a vote at the membership meeting because I'm a staff. So it's literally just the congregation that votes on this. It is the elders who make the final decision on what number to present. And so feel free also, like, if you're like, man, I don't agree with some of these numbers, man, talk to the elders. Like they know they need to defend this budget. We had those conversations. They're aware, they're ready, they get it. And so we're not expecting anything major. Like this is not much different than previous years. But if there is, man, that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's great.
Hope you guys have a great week.
Take care.
Talk soon.